Good day, everyone. We will dive into the world of data loading and analysis with SQL Nexus. In this exciting video, we will take you on a journey to unleash the power of SQL Nexus, the ultimate tool for optimizing and understanding your SQL Server performance. Today, we are going to walk you through the process of loading data into SQL Nexus and demonstrate how to harness its capabilities to gain valuable insights into your databases. Whether you are a seasoned SQL professional or just starting out, this video will equip you with knowledge and skills to make the most of this powerful tool. Join us as we delve into the step-by-step process of loading your data into SQL Nexus, and then we will show you how to navigate the tool's interface to explore and analyze the loaded data. Get ready to uncover performance bottlenecks, optimize query execution, and gain a deeper understanding of your SQL Server environment. All right, here we are in SQL Nexus right now. So what I'll do now is I will click on connect here. And then if you see here, we will be connected to a database called SQL Nexus. So we don't have any data in that, so we are not able to see any reports and details on that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to click on this drop down, and then I will click on this new database. And then what I'll do is I will give a name, let's say SQL underscore log scout underscore today's date, let's say 05 July 2023. So this is the database that is going to hold my log scout data that I've collected in my previous video. I will use that data and I will load that data into this particular database called SQL underscore log scout underscore 05 July 2023. So now what I'll do is I will take you to the location where I have the SQL log scout. So log scout data. So if I see here, the last time that I collected, which was 21st June, we collected close to 13 MB of data, and then the uncompressed data is here. So it basically contains your performance monitor log, extended events, and then a lot of other things like high CPU post stats and things like that. So what I'll do is I'll just copy this location and then go to the SQL Nexus here and then click on import here. And then I will paste this location here and then click on import. So if you see here, the load process is going on. So we will basically have to wait for it to complete. So if you look at it here, this one is currently showing a stop. Once the load process completes, it will change from stop to import. So that means it will allow us to import it one more time, but that is not required. At least that will tell us the loading process is completed. So right now the BLG file is getting loaded. So what I'll do now is I will pause this video, and once the loading process completes, I will resume it back. Okay, so the load process is complete now, and if you see here, we are able to see that this has become import here. So just to have a look what all we have done as far as the SQL Nexus is concerned. If you see here, it has loaded existing profiler X event traces.out. That basically tells what all X events were running. So it has loaded high CPU, post stats, all these informations are getting loaded. And then if you look at it here, it has loaded your XCL files. If it is going to be we used extended events. If you select trace, then profiler trace, then you will see profiler trace also getting loaded. And BLG file is basically your performance monitor file that is also getting loaded here. So everything is loaded and we see no error. So this is very important. You basically have to look at the progress bar here and make sure it is all green and make sure there are no failures. Yep. And now that everything is loaded fine, what I'm going to do, I'm going to close this, and then I'm going to click on this SQL perf main here. So as soon as I clicked on it, previously we did not see anything loaded here, but now if you see here, there are so many things loaded with we have all the details here. So let me go through the first one. The first one would be like the best practice and analysis summary. So if you click on that, it basically gives you an overall summary, basically stating like what all details it has found on this particular log scout data that was collected. So it basically tells like expensive X events are active on the system. So it could be like there were many X events running. So that is something that you need to check. So it is basically telling like max server memory is set to default. That is like it is set to that 2 terabyte value, and it is also giving a recommendation. So right away you can change this because you need to have a max server memory. And also like if you see here, it basically tells like query optimizer timeout is detected in query plans. That means like in for example on this plan, Sharon underscore 4.sql plan, it detected optimizer timeout. So you have the required reference also. You can click on that and have a look. And also like disk IO analysis, it basically tells like the average disk seconds per transfer, that is your reads and writes combined. As far as the latency is concerned, it is basically telling like it exceeded 20 milliseconds for 1 minute or more. So that is like consistently for 1 minute. It basically tells like there seems to be a problem on the F drive where the value was like not on the F drive. It is basically telling like any of the drives. Maybe this is just an example. So yeah, so it is about 20 milliseconds, which is definitely a cause of concern. So we have to look at it. So in order to go back, you have this back button here. You just need to click on it, and then you can look at other report also. For example, the database configuration. It tells you what all databases you have on this machine, and then it gives you all the details like what are the scope configuration, and also like other details which will be very very useful for us. And it gives you the database files. It tells like which drive has what files. You will be able to understand that information. Likewise, we have this VLF information also. So if you see here, it basically tells like this database ARC reactor has got close to 160 VLF. So we have all these informations. So we just follow the report that is present here, and that will clearly tell us like what is happening on the database server. And this SQL log scout that I have taken, which is basically for a demo. We do not have any issues. I'm just going through like each and every report and see what is that we have in SQL Nexus. Yeah, and then let's click on server configuration. Yeah, and if you see here, it gives you all the basic details as far as the instance is concerned. Likewise, you have other informations as well. Here you have this read trace reports, which is basically the data from your XCL, or that is your extended events or the profiler trace. So you have this information. It basically gives you all the details like how many batch started and things like that. The most important thing would be like I would first go with the unique batches. Yeah, and then I'll be able to understand like what are the queries that is running here. So this would give you some good fair amount of idea. So if I look at it here, what I'm seeing is like this particular query with query number 1. This executed 5 times when we took the SQL log scout, and what we are able to see is like it took close to 31.6% of the CPU. Yep, and the same query 5 executes. If you see here, the query number is 1 again here, and it is 5 executes, and it takes like 34% of the duration. So it gives you all the details as far as the query execution is concerned. So what I can basically tell, like this particular query with query number 1 seems to be the top consumer as far as your CPU, your duration, logical reads, and total writes is concerned. Okay, and if you look at it, what is that? It is basically the database backup stored procedure. Yes, as I told you earlier, it is just a test a log scout data, so it doesn't have any production workload, but this is what we are seeing. If you see here, it basically tells like 5 executes, we have this much of CPU, duration, reads and writes. So this will give you for on a production server, this will give you a fair amount of idea. Basically, you will be able to understand like where are we spending most of our time. Yep, let's go back. So you have other things also, like you can check on interesting events. For example, if there are any timeouts and things like that, and if you have a statement level PSS diag or log scout, then you can use unique statements also, and then you will be able to drill down further, like which particular statements within the batch has taken much resource. Likewise, you will be able to use login name, database ID, and application name as well. Let me go back. So we have other details, like let's click on this bottleneck analysis. And bottleneck analysis basically tells us the CPU utilization. And what I'm seeing here is like non-SQL CPU utilization that is outside of SQL Server. It basically talks about the CPU utilization. And this LO is basically SQL CPU utilization. Now, for example, if I see this LO being very high in this graph, and if it is consistent, then we can clearly understand like SQL Server seems to be utilizing much CPU. But on the other hand, if this purple color graph is very high for consistent amount of time, then we can be very sure like some other process on the database server is using much CPU. You will have to drill down further using the performance monitor manually and then understand those granular details. And then if I look at my weight statistics here, what I'm able to see is like the period when we executed this PSS diag, HADR sync commit seems to be the top weight type. Yeah, so this one also becomes comes handy when you are doing performance troubleshooting, so you can get all these information. There are so many other things that once you start looking at, you will be able to understand. For example, if you have blockings, and you can check that one as well. For example, if there is any blocking, you get the blocking chains as well. So we will look at each and every scenario later. Like we will start with CPU utilization, and then blocking, page latch contention, and things like that. We will execute the PSS diag, and then we will try to understand and decode what is happening on the database server. So these are the reports. There are so many other things like missing indexes, memory brokers, performance monitor summary, query store, query analysis, pinlock stats, system thread CPU consumption, temp DB space usage, tables used by top query. So you can utilize all these reports, basically like looking at each and every report on a production from the data that you collected from the production server can give you really some great information, and then you will be able to use it to tune the database server. So that's on the SQL Nexus. We have a Power BI report as well here. For example, if you see here, we have this Power BI report here. These are the two things that I'm going to show now. So let's start with this performance reports here. The prerequisites for this is like you need to have Power BI installed. Once Power BI is installed, we will be able to open this particular report. And then once the report comes in, you basically have to key in the database server name and the database where the log scout or PSS diag data is loaded. So let me pause the video. Once the PSS diag, once the Power BI report comes up, I will resume the video back. Okay, so we have this Power BI report here. So what I'm going to do is like I'm going to key in this SQL Nexus database. I know that the SQL instance name is JBS AG2. So let me copy the SQL Nexus database name. In my case, this is the one. So let me copy that, and then let me go to the Power BI report. Server name, we know that it is JBS AG2. So let me key in that. I will leave everything else as default and then click on load. It's going to take some time. It will basically ask you whether to execute the queries against this SQL instance, so you can safely click on run. So you just need to click on run here, as I told you earlier. So here I'm going to select click on connect here, and then click run this. Click on connect. It's going to try connecting to JBS AG2. So it is running now. So it is basically telling we are unable to connect to the data source using an encrypted connection. To access this data source using an encrypted connection, click OK. So let me click on OK here, then click on run. So whatever data set it is trying to populate using the TSQL query, it will ask you to, it will just tell you like, it gives you this information and then it will ask whether it can run. So we know that this particular report is safe to run because it is coming along with the SQL Nexus. So it is safe to click on run and then you can proceed further. As we know, like the SQL log scout or PSS diag data will not be loaded on a production server. We'll basically be doing it on your laptop or your desktop or on a non-production server. So I don't think there will be any issues, to be frank, because Power BI, if you look at it, it utilizes good amount of resources, so it is always safe to run it on a non-production server. So let me click on run. There are so many other queries, so we basically have to click run for each and every query that is going to be executed here. So once that is completed, you will get some a great visualization of your SQL Nexus data. It really gives you some great data here. So let me pause this video and then once the load completes, I will resume it back. Okay, so the load completed fine, and if you see here, we have some great visualization of your log scout data that we loaded into SQL Nexus. So the performance summary is that the CPU utilization looks good, page drive expectancy seems to be very good here, and also like if you have the details of target server memory and total server memory, there are no memory grants pending. HADR sync commit seems to be the top page type here. It also gives you details of read latency, write latency, network megabytes total per second. So you have many other tabs here. For example, you look at this weights and latches. It gives you all the details of the weights that is happening on the database server. And then you look at the CPU. You get all the details related to CPU. Likewise, we have information for memory, data access. There are so many other things like IO by instance, for example. If you look at this one, it gives you the details like what are the latency values and also what is the throughput and things like that. You have all the details here, and you have details related to spin locks. You have details related to plan cache. So this one is really a good one, at least for me. I would basically be able to understand like how is your plan cache is positioned as far as your database server is concerned. For example, you have whether your ad hoc queries are there in your plan cache or your stored procedures, all those information you will be able to understand. You get the count as well as the size of the plan cache. So if you look at each and every report, that would give us a lot of information per se. So now there are so many other tabs here, and then looking at the server configuration, it tells you the SP underscore configure, the server properties, any trace flags are there, startup parameters, and then also it gives you the analysis summary that we saw in SQL Nexus. You will be able to see the same thing on this particular report as well. It has got wealth of information. Once you get proper data from a production server, the information that you're going to get from this report is going to be really exhaustive. And using that, you will be able to complete a perfect health check or a review of the database server. It's free of cost, and then you will be able to do it with perfect accuracy, to be frank. Let me go back to the SQL Nexus. This time I'm going to select, let me close this first. I'm not going to save it now. This is just a demo. So now I'll click on read trace reports, and this read trace report is basically for TSQL queries that is basically running on the database. So the performance report basically gives you an overall view of the database server as far as the resources and things like that are concerned. But as far as this second one, read trace reports, is concerned, it is purely on the TSQL queries. It gives you a clear-cut information like what queries were running on the database server and things like that. So let me close this. And then it will again be asking for the server name and the database name. So server name, we know that it is JBS AG2. So this server name is basically the SQL server name where your SQL Nexus data is loaded into a database. And database name, we know that. And then let's click on load. So let's click on run here. Run. So let me pause the video. Once the load completes, I will resume it back. Awesome, it completed. So let's wait for the visualizations here. So we have it here. Let me move these things. So if we see here, you have all the details here, like how many batches started, batches completed, and informations like that. And resource consumption, basically what it will show you is like it basically gives you the information like what logins are there and what are the batches started by these logins. All these informations will be there. The most important thing would be this top unique batches. So if you see here, it visualizes like what queries were running at that time, and it is basically like ordered by CPU here. So you will be able to get this top 10 queries here. If you want, you can change that, but yeah, top 10 should be fine. Tuning top 3 or 5 queries should really help. And this one is going to give you a lot of information. Like, for example, at least if I see here, this query 1 seems to be the top consumer as far as CPU reads, writes, and duration is concerned. Likewise, query number 2 is also the top consumer of all the things here like CPU reads, writes, and duration. Now, if you look at here, third query seems to be the third highest consumer of CPU, but we don't see number 3 here as far as the reads are concerned. So you get all these details based upon your priority and requirement for tuning the system. You will be able to pick up the required query and then move forward. Yep. And batch details is there. So it gives you the informations like in the graphical format, like how many batches started and things like that. Now let's go to top unique statements. It will mostly be blank as in my case, I've not collected a statement level PSS diag or log scout because statement level is somewhat tedious and it can have an overall performance impact on the production server. But if you have collected statement level trace for say like some minutes or so, then you will be able to get that information as well. So we have the statement details. In our case, we'll not see anything. Interesting events basically tells you like details such as auto stats, attention, basically your timeout and things like that. All these informations will be there. So with this information, with these two Power BI report and also the SQL Nexus um, custom report, existing inbuilt reports, we will be able to understand, get all the required details, and this basically like can provide us all the required details, and this can easily replace as an health check tool for us for if you want to do a proactive health check or if you want to work on a reactive issue. SQL Nexus, SQL Log Score, or PSS DAG would be my go-to tool. That's it for this video. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. Have a great day. Jai Hind.